नमस्कार, आपसे मिलकर खुशी हुई।
Hello and welcome to Strategic News International. I'm Parul Chandra, and with me is the Ambassador of Germany to India, Mr. Walter J. Lindner. Ambassador Lindner has been in India for about 3 months and has literally taken the capital by storm as he rides around Delhi's streets in his red-colored Auntie Amby. There's also a contest that's currently running on in the capital, and it's created a huge stir in the social media, especially on Ambassador Lindner's Twitter handle. Ambassador Lindner, welcome to Strategic News International. And let me begin with asking you a question in Hindi, because I learned that you started learning Hindi before you took up your New Delhi posting. Is that correct? आपने हिंदी सीखनी कब शुरू करी?
नमस्कार, आपसे मिलकर खुशी हुई। मेरी हिंदी बहुत अच्छी नहीं है। मेरी हिंदी सीख रहा हूँ।
You know, you presented your credentials to President Kovind in Hindi. You took the oath in Hindi, and later you tweeted that the president smiled when you spoke in Hindi. So you clearly began on the right note.
I think so. I mean, before me and after me, they were, of course, presenting in English. But that's what you usually do. So it was caught by surprise, I guess. First, I came with my Amby, with my red Amby.
Yes.
And then I presented in Hindi. I think it's an act out of courtesy and out of respect to the country and to the wonderful language. So he smiled. And then he asked, and he said, you speak very well English. And I said, well, not so good. But that ended there. So I wish I could have continued. If I would present it once again, I would be better, I guess.
Or maybe when you meet him again, your Hindi would have perhaps improved by leaps and bounds.
I'm sure he will test me when I meet him next time. Yeah.
And you also went in this red ambassador car. Now, this ambassador car has really become quite a hit on Delhi streets. The German embassy is running this spot, the Auntie Amby contest. Now, what is all this contest about? And from where on earth did you get hold of this Auntie Amby? Well,
it's a baby auntie now. We have a few baby aunties out there and we give them away. So, well, this car, let me start like that. It's a wonderful car. It's a car which you can call car. Of course, I have BMWs and Mercedes as a German ambassador, but those cars are like spaceships. All is electronic, and you don't have the feeling of being in a car. While you sit in an Amby, in the ambassador car, you feel the road. you smell everything, and you have everything is manual. I love this. This is the real car feeling. So, and it's also cute. We painted it red. And so I fell in love with it immediately. And the interesting or funny thing is, it's now sort of taken out of my hand. It has grown out of being my car. It's now a car of the Indians.
Absolutely.
People are waving at the streets, and they say, how is she doing in monsoon? And isn't it too hot for her? And whatever. She has her own personality. I wouldn't be surprised if she would speak one day.
Yeah, that's quite possible, given that Auntie Amby is almost, you've brought Auntie Amby to life the way you've been riding the car.
It's true. So everyone wants to have a picture with it, which is fine. I do it, but Auntie has her mood, so if she's not in the right mood, you don't get a picture. Yeah.
Oh my God, I think I should be on my best behavior when I get myself clicked with Auntie Amby.
You better do. I keep my fingers crossed you get it.
Okay, now let me take you back to your first trip to India. You came to India 42 years ago as a young German, as a backpacker. What brought you to India, and where all did you travel?
Well, in that time, it was the 70s. People in the West, young people in the West, were searching for spirituality. We didn't find it very much because in our societies, after the Second World War, everything was reconstructing, consume, and getting material things. And we said, no, there's something missing. We need something extraordinary, some spiritual. And some went into sects, some used drugs, whatever. But many of us were looking for spirituality which comes from the East. And the motherland of spirituality is India. So we read Hermann Hesse, Siddhartha, and so we were inspired by all this. And then, of course, the Beatles had their gurus here, and so this brought a whole generation, not only me, into this quest of searching for spirituality, and that's why I went to India, and I stayed here more than 6 months, backpacking and in the cheap hotels and in the second-class trains, and so I saw India from the bottom, and it was very interesting.
And I believe you went to the Beatles, the ashram that the Beatles visited in Rishikesh. Did you go there?
I went there, of course.
Are you a Beatles fan? I know you're a musician.
Yes, I mean, every musician is a Beatles fan because they are just the masters of harmony and of, there's nothing like
Good
Michelle
vocals.
and Hey Jude. These are classics like Beethoven.
Yes.
So, but I'm of course jazz musician, rock, soul, pop. I do a lot of things, but when it comes down, it's like classical music comes down to Bach, and pop music has its roots also in the Beatles. By the way, without Bach, there would be no Beatles, because Bach has invented all these harmony changes, whatever. So it's a logical thing: Bach, Beatles, and then other music later on.
Okay, that's interesting to hear from you, because I am a huge Beatles fan myself, but to be told or to learn that they were influenced by Bach, this is what I didn't know. Yes.
The harmony came from Bach.
I see, because I am not very sure if they did learn any classical music.
No, but it's not important whether they learned it or not, but the chord progressions, which they had in their ears, maybe not intentionally, came from Bach, because before Bach there was no half tones in the Western music. There was no harmonic changes, progresses, which later on became totally normal. And the Beatles took it up maybe from of course you have this kind of chord progressions, but it came from Bach.
Ambassador Lindner, you describe yourself as a musician, and I hear that you play as many as 15 musical instruments. And in fact, just the day before, you performed with the Grammy Award winner Ricky Kay, and you played the flute then. But what brought about this, this concert?
Wherever I go as an ambassador, as a professional musician, also I come not only as ambassador but also as professional musicians. I always look for the good music in the country. So in India, it would be classical Indian music, whether North or South Indian, or Sufi, or even Bollywood if it's well done. But there's this Ricky Kay, which I knew through Twitter, and then I checked in the internet, and I liked the music very much. This is new age kind of music, and so that's maybe he's not so well known in India, but outside India he's very well known because he won a Grammy. There were only 4 people who won a Grammy from India, and one is Ravi Shankar. So not a bad record for him.
Not at all.
So I checked his Twitter and his video, and he contacted me and said, you must be a cool ambassador, and you're a musician too. He checked me out too.
Yes.
And so we met on stage for the first time.
I see, and you performed together for the first time.
Yes, we did just a sound check, and that we want.
I see. And coming back to this, you said that you've been variously described as Ambassador Cool, the ambassador who's a rock star, and the ambassador who's rocking, who's all these monikers have been given to you. So how does it feel like, especially when diplomacy is supposed to be a very different kind of vocation, where you're supposed to be very proper, maintain a stiff upper lip, and say all the right things.
Yeah. Well, I try to do, but and I'm proper, but I try to separate this. I'm a diplomat, okay? I'm an ambassador, but also I'm a musician, and I'm a traveler. I try, if you mix it, maybe it's unusual that an ambassador shows his private side, and is a natural person. And I'm trying to be like I am. I mean, in the old days, diplomats were sitting behind closed doors, and were negotiating on secret treaties, and then cocktail parties, and
it still happens.
It still happens, but I think nowadays with the social media, where everything is blown out anyway immediately, and we have a modern society where people are not only listening to, let's say, classical music or only a raga, but they're also listening to rap, and to the Rolling Stones and other things. So I think why should the ambassadors or diplomats not represent also this kind of broad society? Because, you know, I wear jeans and T-shirt if I run around. Why shouldn't I do this out there when there's something where I can do this, and I talk to the people, I go to the spice market.
You went to Kari Bauli, I saw that on your Twitter handle.
Because I want to see how our Indians...
You went to Jama Masjid?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I want to see how do the Indians live. As ambassador, you live in a country, and Mrs. Merkel, for example, would, if she wants to know what do the Indians think on this and that, as ambassador, I have to know what's the DNA of a country, of the people. Why are Indians like they are? Why are they so spiritual? Does this influence their decision making in politics? And to get to the soul of an Indian, you have to go to a spice market. And you have to go to, you know, take a rickshaw and go through this madman traffic where they kill each other, you would think, but they don't. They're not even touching each other.
We have the survival instinct, you see.
I don't know. This must be something inborn. Otherwise, we would cause an incident every second. You don't.
I wanted to also ask you about your ponytail. You've had it, I think, since a very long time. In fact, I saw a photograph of yours. When you traveled to India, you had long hair. Yeah. So you do stand out in a crowd, but is it normal for diplomats to spot a ponytail?
No.
So were you ever asked to kind of chop it off and look more like a diplomat?
Not in my face.
Okay.
I don't know what people talk behind my back, but you know, I've been spokesman of the government, and I've done so many jobs. Maybe you have to be a bit more focused, because people would think, look at him, he can't be a good diplomat, so you have to be really good in your job.
So that they take you seriously, is that?
That they take you seriously. But, you know, once they get over this, and I mean, I've been foreign secretary before I came here, so I was with all these ministers, and internationally also, when I was spokesman of the government, I met everyone. So after a while, they just think, yeah, of course we know him. You know, it's the one with the ponytail. But you know, I'm an artist, and there are not that many artists in politics and in diplomacy. So that's why I stand out. You know, it's not my fault. You know.
Ambassador Lindner, now may I bring your attention to India-Germany ties? How do you see the ties at present, and where do you see them headed?
You know, India and Germany have a long tradition. I know every ambassador would say that, but we do have a really long tradition, which comes from a closeness between Indians and Germans. You know, there have been many people intrigued by Indian literature, Indian languages, Urdu, Hindi, even Kannada, I think, was first written down by a German linguist. And so there are lots of Hindu specialists in Germany who are, you know the Sanskrit by heart. And this is this kind of scientific, emotional, linguistic link which we have, historical link we have. Yes. And we are, you know, in many things we are pretty similar, like no nonsense and straightforward, and you know, so there are it's an emotional closeness already. And then of course we are the powerhouse in the European Union.
Yes.
And India, of course, with its weight, and it's a powerhouse itself. So we know our position in the world. We are modest. India is also very modest. It's not one who is shouting out all the time, I'm the biggest. You don't do that. You just show it by being big and by being, you know, rational.
So you spoke about the EU. Now the UK, Britain is exiting the EU, and do you see any kind of benefits that Germany will draw from this?
No.
Not at all?
No. This was the worst decision that has been done. I mean, it's up to the British people to decide it, but it's a big loss. It's a big loss that they left the European Union. I don't know what happens there and who voted for that. It's an independent, sovereign decision, but we were regretting it, myself personally, of course, but also Madame Merkel and the government, because there's just no benefit in it. There's just no benefit, and the British people will notice it. You will see. If they do a Brexit now, if it's a so-called dirty Brexit without an agreement, it will be even worse. Because then from one day to the other day, puff, you have all the benefits and all the positive aspects gone by one day. From airlines to insurance companies, you don't know where to start. So this is, and the world is in a turmoil anyway. People looking for, because it's so complicated, and then you have the US on side, and you have the Russian on that side, and you have China on that side, and you have the Middle East. So, and you have the refugees. So there are so many things which we should concentrate on. And what do? We concentrate on how do we separate from our family member. The UK's government is focusing since 2 years on how do we do this. The discussions and debates in the parliament there are just going around there, while the rest of the world is going on, and the problems are there.
Basically, their focus is diverted to something which you think.
And the European also, in the institutions, we think, what do we do? How do we negotiate? And it's a disaster. And I would have hoped that this would not have happened, but it happened. And now let's see. I don't want to speculate on a second referendum. That's all up to the British. But I wish we could see the British not leaving.
Ambassador Lindner, another question is regarding Iran. Now they're escalating tensions in the Persian Gulf region, and Iran says that it feels let down by the European countries, amongst whom is Germany, who, well, in a way have backed Iran, but Iran perhaps feels that Germany, France, etc. could have done much more on this nuclear deal. What would you say on this?
Well, the nuclear deal was, the gist of the nuclear deal was Iran will not be able to have their own nuclear weapon, and for compensation to this, they get some economic benefits. That was the deal. Now, I think it worked because the Iranians, they didn't proceed on their researches and of the nuclear material. What they did, I mean, in that context, the behavior was good, but on the other side, and what they were doing with supporting Hezbollah and in Syria, and supporting some kind of unrest there was not good. So maybe they didn't violate the treaty as such, but maybe the spirit of the treaty. Okay. But still, we think it's still better to stick to the treaty. Now Trump left the treaty, which was unfortunate. We said it's not good because, we all think the same, Israel, US, Europeans, that Iran should not be in possession of nuclear weapons. Now this is our goal. The way to go there, I think we disagree. And we think we should still stick to it. The worst thing could be that in the end, there will be a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. And then this is bad. Bad for Israel, bad for us, bad for everyone there. So nobody can win there. So that's why we think it's still time to stick to it now. Iranians have said they have violated themselves a little bit. But, I think all parties there should really refrain from putting oil into fire. Because at the end, we are all losing. Everyone in the world, because it's the oil price, it's the stability, it's the looming war in Middle East. Nobody wants that, so that's why it's a sensitive topic, but we still have some hope.
Okay. On that note, I hope that some wisdom will prevail amongst not just Iran but all the countries involved in the current crisis. Thank you, Ambassador Lindner, for spending time with SNI and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much for having me in your program.